Om Sadashiva-Samarambham Shankaracharya-Madhyamam
Asmadacharya-Paryantam
Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhunaktu Saha
Sahaviryam
Karavavahai
Karavavahai
Tejasvinavadhitamastu Mahavidvishavahai.
Vishavahi.
Om
Om
Shanti
Shanti
Shanti.
Shanti Shanti.
That's it. Om Namah Shivaya. Good
Om
morning.
Namah Shivaya.
Om Namah Shivaya.
So we have stopped. We have stopped a couple of weeks ago at Karika number 14 of the second chapter, and we were seeing that we were discussing various views of various philosophers, Purvapakshis, and that continues with today with the 15th Karika. So we will chant. Please unmute yourself and let's chant. Avyakta eva yantastu
Avyakta eva yantastu
uta eva cha ye bahi
Sputa eva cha ye bahi
kalpita eva te sarve
Kalpita eva te sarve
विशेषस्त्व इंद्रिया अंतरे
Visheshastvindriyantare.
So I'll just mute you all first. Okay. You have to break the word ye antastu in the first line. So ye tu antaha. Ye antaha tu, which can rearrange to ye tu antaha. Ye meaning that experience, antaha, which happens inside, avyakta eva, appears very, very unclear. So here the word avyaktam has to be taken not as unmanifest, but as very clouded and very unclear. So that which is experienced inside the mind, of course, is unclear. Ye bahihi eva, while that which is experienced outside, sphuta eva, is very, very clear. However, te sarvehe, all these experiences, whether they are inside or outside, kalpita eva, they are all mithya only. And what is the difference? Indriya antare visheshaha. The difference is due to the fact that different sets of indriyas are experiencing the different sets of experiences. So this is a new theory of another Purvapakshi. Okay, he says that what is experienced very clearly is Satyam, is real. While what is experienced very unclearly, very vaguely, that is Mithya, right? So like, for example, you can take the world in the Jagrat state. It is experienced very, very clearly, and that he says Satyam. While Swapna Prapancha, the dream world, is not so clear, it is vague, and therefore it is Mithya. So this is the argument. What is the answer? The answer is given in the second line, which says that objects or even the world may appear clear and may appear vague, but they are only from the standpoints of the Indriyas. That's what he's saying. It's because of different sets of Indriyas which are being used that the world appears clear and the world appears unclear. Now, for example, let us say that people who are colorblind, for them, the world does not have color. So there is a defective Indriya, and therefore the appearance is different. For them, everything is black and white, they don't have color. And you can take for the sound example, you can take, for example, some animals like dogs. They hear frequencies that we cannot hear, right? And even when you look at, If you look at the eyes, for example, what appears solid to you is because your eyes have a range of vision. If your eyes were capable of seeing atoms and molecules, what would happen? If the range of your vision encompassed, say, atoms, particles, molecules, what would you be seeing? When you look at, for example, when I look at June, what would I be seeing? June?
Would it be like the pixelated pictures we see of something broken
Not
up
at
into
all.
multiple?
Not at all. I
No.
said if your eyes were capable of seeing atoms and molecules, which means if
Huh.
your eyes had the power of electronic microscope, you would
Right.
not see any objects at all. All you would be able to see is atoms in
Oh,
motion, and there will be
okay. Yeah,
large
yeah, yeah.
spaces. So actually, what you think is
Right.
solid, it's not really solid. There are only atoms in motion. And if you know about electronic theory, you know spaces are huge. But because your
Yeah.
eyes and your sense organs do not have the capacity to appreciate those spaces, everything appears solid in between. And here he is referring to
Grounded.
Jagrada Avastha. Jagrada Avastha is clear from the standpoint of the sense organs available in the Jagrada Avastha, right? The Swapna Avastha is clear from the point of the sense organs, the Indriyas available in the Swapna Avastha. But from the standpoint of the Indriyas available in Jagrada Avastha, what is the status of the objects of Dream Avastha? They become very vague. Because for you now, in the Jagrada Avastha, the dream state is basically that only. It's a memory. Therefore, the Jagrada Avastha is clear from the standpoint of the waker's sense organs. While in Swapna Avastha, the waker's world does not exist at all. Those Indriyas are not capable of seeing the Jagrat world. Therefore, what is Mithya and what is Satyam is only from a particular standpoint. When the standpoint is shifted, the names become meaningless. I can give some other examples. Amavasya and Paurnami. What are they? What is Amavasya? What is Paurnami?
Waxing and waning moon.
Waxing and
You're
waning
talking
moon.
about that.
Right. Now, if that has that those two words, the waxing moon and the waning moon, they have a meaning only if you are standing on the earth. Supposing you have taken a shuttlecraft to the moon, which day will be Paurnami, which day will be Amavasya? The words become
None
meaning.
actually.
The words
Yeah.
become meaningless.
Yeah.
Similarly, when you say directions, when you say east, you fix it with relation to the sun. But if you are standing on the sun, what is east? And if you don't have east, you don't have the other three directions also. So everything is from the standpoint of a particular idea. And since there are no absolute meanings to any of these, he is saying everything is mithya only. In fact, when I look upon myself as a jiva, from the standpoint of my sthula shariram, the Jagrata Prapancha is real. Right? All of us, we see the world through the sense organs, which is from the standpoint of the physical body. And as long as you are restricting your vision to the physical body, the world is satyam only. Right? Mithya, therefore, what is actually mithya? The world is actually mithya, but you are taking that mithya as satyam. because of a common reference point which everybody has. What is that? The gross body. Everybody who looks at the world from the point of the Sthula Shariram, they will say world is real. But the moment you shift the reference point to the Sukshma Shariram, and therefore, here in this case, dream Indriyas, the Jagrata Prapancha is no longer real, and the Swapna Prapancha only becomes real, only becomes Satya. But we must be aware that even that Swapna Prapancha is Mithya only. Because when you change your Indriyas, the instrument of knowledge, which is the medium of your transaction, then everything else changes. And therefore, he says here that objects in the waking state are just as much mithya as objects in Swapna Prapancha. Okay. What is the idea being conveyed? You should be remembering all the earlier Karikas. So here the idea being conveyed is that what is Satyam and what is Mithya is not on the basis of what is clear and what is not clear, which is the philosophy of one set of people, and that has been given in the first line. So he's telling them that what is clear and what is not clear is not the basis to decide whether something is Satyam or not. What is Satyam and what is Mithya is decided only upon one factor. What is that?
They are subject to arrival and departure. I mean, they come and go like.
Yes,
When
that is true. But what is the definition we all know? Trikale
Okay,
Dependent.
seemingly existent, huh?
Trikale
Neither fits
Sat.
into.
Right. So whatever is permanently existing, you have to always remember that the universe consists only of two things. One is Atma, one is Anatma. And what did you say in Tattva-bodha? What is Atma is Sat. Everything else is Mithya only. These definitions should never forget, because if you forget this definition, then all these things become unclear. And therefore, here it is, whatever is changeless, whatever is eternal, that is the Atma, that is Sat. Whatever is not the Atma, which means whatever is changing, whatever is non-eternal, that is Mithya only. Okay, now we saw over the last few Karikas 4 ideas. What were they? Utility or not having utility. That is not a criteria for determining Satyam Mithya. What is external, what is internal, that is not a criteria for determining what is Satyam, what is Mithya. What is objective, what is not objective, that is not a criteria for determining what is Satyam and what is Mithya. And in this Karika we saw what is clarity and what is non-clear. That also is not a criteria for determining what is Satyam and what is Mithya. So all these ideas, all these adjectives, they belong to Vyavaharika Satyam. They have no operation in Paramārthika Satyam. Okay. Right. Now we look at the Karika number 16, which we will chant. Please unmute yourself. Jeevam kalpayate purvam.
Jeevam
kalpayate
purvam.
purvam
Tato bhavan pritagvidhan.
bhavan pritagvidhan
Ahan adhyatmikam chaiva. Ahyan adhyatmikam chaiva. Yatha vidyasthatha smritihi.
यथा
यथा
विद्यस्तथा
विद्यस्तथा
स्मृतिः
स्मृतिः.
So this is, you have to imagine a question here. You are saying everything is mithya, excepting Atma. And this mithya is projected, right? It's a projection. It is kalpitam, projection, imaginary, imagined, superimposed. So the question is, if everything is superimposed, who is the one who is superimposing it, right? This was a question already raised. If you remember Karika number 11, it was raised already, and the answer was given in Karika number 12. What was the answer? Who is the one who projects? I told you, unless you are constantly revising this, this Upanishad is going to be very difficult to understand. Who is the projector?
I the Atma.
I want to know what it said in Karika number 12.
Atma Deva
Atma Deva Swamayaya Kalpayati. Who is the Atma Eva? That is Antaryami. The third pada, Tritiya pada is the Antaryami. So Tritiya pada, Antaryami, projects the other two padas. Projects Prathama pada and Dvitiya pada. I hope you remember that, right? And therefore, this Karika is actually a expansion on that answer. So idea is that if that Antaryami Ishvara is the one who superimposes everything in the world, who projects everything in the world, is there any systematic method for this projection, or is it just random? What is the way in which Srishti comes? Does the world come first and then Jiva comes next? Or does Jiva come first and world come next? What is the method? So that is what he's saying. And Shankara says in his introduction to this Karika, Shankara commentary, he says, because this is who has written this Karika? It is not Shankara. I just want to remind you, whose words are these in this Karika?
Gaudapada.
Gaudapada. It is not
Gaudapada.
Shankaracharya. Okay.
Hmm.
So Shankara says that the Bahya Adhyatmika Bhavaha, the objects, Bhavaha here means objects, the objects which are Bahya in the external world, you can take it as objective world, and Adhyatmika Bhavaha, the objects in the internal world, the subjective world. Shankara says very nicely that they have a mutual relationship. They have a mutual relationship, which is what? Cause and effect. One is the cause, another is the effect. The other is the effect, first one is the cause. So what is he saying? What are these two? One is the external world of objects, and one is the internal world of knowledge and emotion, right? So he's saying that the karta, when he does some karma, what happens? When karta does some karma, what is the result?
Punyam papam.
Sorry?
Punyam papam karma phalam.
Karma phalam. Right. So let's not talk about punyam papam, we'll take it as karma phalam. Now we have discussed before, karma phalam, when generated in this life, some part of it is may be experienced. Okay, some part of the karma phalam may be experienced in this life, but some part gets carried over. And the part which gets carried over, it has two components. What are they? Any karma phalam carried over gets carried over in as two entities. You can't say they're different, but the influences are different. So what are they?
Drishta, Adrishta, are we talking about that? Or we are talking about Agami,
Agami and Sanchita.
Agami karma?
I'm not talking about that also. We're talking about the
Hmm.
fact that karma which gets carried over, some of it is experienced by the bhokta, by experienced by the jiva as
Ah,
bhokta,
okay.
and some of it remains as the
Vasana.
driver for the karta.
Huh.
So
Vasana.
they you give it different names. You say karma phalam and vasana. Essentially, both are karma phalam only, and therefore the karta, the vasanas which remain, they influence the karta. And he also says that as a bhokta also, what happens? The way that we experience things, that determines your action as a karta also. Is it true? He's trying to tell you that both are interlinked. Whatever you have done as a karta has two ways of touching you. One is by way of karma phalam, punyam papam, which is sorrow and pleasure. One is by way of influencing your actions themselves as vasanas.
Mm.
And further, he says that what you experience as the bhokta, that also influences your actions in future. Does it not?
Yes.
Yes.
Right. If you have experienced something unpleasant because of something that you have done and you're able to link up, obviously you will modify your actions in future so as to exclude that kind of phalam. So definitely your experience as a bhokta does influence your future kartritvam also. And therefore, Gaudapada is saying both are mutually interlinked, right? It is not possible to say which is the cause and which is the effect. Do you understand? It is not clearly possible to say which is the cause and which is the effect. Both are interlinked. Okay. Now, the next question is, what is the basis for the Srishti, for this projection of the Srishti? Right. We have already said that Srishti, Sthiti, Laya, the creation, maintenance, and destruction is a cycle. We have discussed this multiple times, and we have said that it is not logical to talk about a point where Srishti starts. But for the sake of discussion, you can't simply say that I can't talk about Srishti because there is no point at which Srishti starts, and therefore you have to have a starting point. There has to be a sequence necessary for understanding. Right. So, which is born first is the question here. Is it the Jiva or is it the Jagat? In a new cycle of creation, which comes first, Jiva or Jagat? Let us say that you are creating, right? You have stepped into the shoes of Ishvara. So you are creating. You have to create a world. Do you create the world according to your wishes? Very, very important question.
Acharya.
Yes, Padma.
That's also given in Tattva-bodhana, the process of creation, the stages which it happens in. So we know the subtle
No.
elements come and
I agree. But that is not the point. See, the entire process is given. But What I'm trying to figure out is if you are Spandana is the Ishvara for a particular creation, right? How would you decide what to create? This process is given, I agree. But how is this process going to be decided? How will you say that I will create a mountain, I will create a river, I will create this, and I will create that? Because remember, you are Ishvara. You don't need anything. Why are you creating at all?
From subtle to gross, I would go.
I don't know. You may go from
It's-
subtle to gross subtle. The
Yeah.
point is, why are you creating?
For the jiva to exhaust
Yeah,
the
for
karma.
Exhausting
there
karma.
to
Jiva,
exhaust their
right?
karma.
So remember that ultimately, when you take creation, it is meant for exhausting the karma of the jivas.
Yes.
And therefore, the total karma must be known before you can make the creation come into being, right? You must know totality of karma is how much is punyam, how much is papam. I'm assuming the prarabdha karma of all the jivas for a particular creation, you must know. Therefore, which comes first?
Jiva.
Jiva has to be in your mind first. And when I say jiva here, remember that I'm using the word jiva is created first, but that is wrong, right?
Because we can similarly say, uh, how was their karma?
No,
So I don't think we can say that comes first.
no.
You can say Anadi.
You are saying there is cyclical creation, right? Now there is a huge stock of sanchita for each jiva. That sanchita is not relevant for the purpose of creation. What is relevant for the purpose of creation is the prarabdha.
Prarabdha.
Correct. So now, if I've taken the cumulative prarabdha available for a particular creation, then only can I decide that the creation has to be in this particular manner. It is not that creation is haphazard. It has to be tailored in such a manner that the entire jiva's prarabdha is taken care of. Entire bunch of jivas. And therefore, jiva has to be there in your mind. As Ishvara, jiva's prarabdha has to be kept in your mind when you decide to create. Right? It's like,
Omacharya,
yes.
so that becomes the template, the entire prarabdha karma for, if I was Ishvara, for me to create the jagat, for the jiva to
I'm
exhaust
asking you.
their karma.
You
Is
tell
that
me.
what we are talking?
That's the question that I'm asking. Or do I say that, okay, I will create a standard universe, mountain, river, blah, blah, galaxies and all that. I'll put all the jivas into it and they can do what they want, which is the correct way to do.
There's no creation happening, no, Acharya.
No, we are talking about not the paramarthik angle. We are talking about the actual Vyavaharika creation. So Vyavaharika angle only we must look at. So I have to say that let me consider all the jivas and all the prarabdha karma, and accordingly what will happen? I will divide the jivas into punya pradhana jiva, papa pradhana jiva, mishra pradhana jiva, and accordingly I will create the lokas. When I take punya pradhana jiva, I am taking celestial beings, not the manushyas. So I will what you call draw up a plan to have some 7 higher lokas. Then they will say, then I will take Papa Pradhana Jivas and I will take a plan and I'll say, okay, I'll have 5 lower lokas. And then I will take the mixed Pradhanam, Mishra Pradhana Jiva, who has got both Punyam and Papam. And I'll say, for this guy, I need to make the earth, right? The Jagat I need to make. And that is why here in this thing he says, Jivam Kalpayate Purvam. Before the lokas are created, before the world is created, I have to know who are the jivas. What is their punyam and papam component? Supposing there is a creation in which there is no papam at all in the prarabdha karma, Then as Ishvara, my job is simple, right? I don't have to make the lower lokas at all. I just make middle loka, higher loka. Supposing there is a creation where there are no Mishra Pradhana Jiva at all, it's only for exhaustion of papam and punyam. Then I don't create Manusha Loka at all. These are all, I'm not saying this will happen. And possibilities are being talked about, right? Just, you can take, you can take for example, town planning, right? How do you decide how many roads to build, which buildings to build, which bridges to build, how many hospitals, how many schools? How do you decide? You do a planning.
Yeah.
This is what Ishvara has to do, right? And then the sequence you can see, which is borne out by Tattvabodha. First Tanmatras, then Panchamahabhutas, Pancha Bhautikanis. Therefore, for the sake of the Jivas alone, I have to create the Lokas. The order of creation necessarily has to be Jiva first and then has to be Loka. Okay, Jivam Kalpayate Purvam. In the beginning, Jivas are created. Now, that statement itself is wrong. Why? Basics of Tattvabodha.
Both are anadi. I mean, cycle, it's cyclical.
Jivas are never created,
Mm.
right? So here, when you say Jivas are created, what are you saying? The Jiva with a physical body capable of transacting in the universe comes into being. Okay, so Kalpayate Purvam, understand it as Jivas are always there. Anadi Jivas and Jivas are never created. And therefore, that prarabdha karma of the Jiva which gives it a physical body, that is being made to come into being. And then after that, Tataha, Bahyan, Pritak Vidhan, Bhavan, various external worlds of objects or the lokas itself, the 14 lokas are created. And therefore, and afterwards what? Adhyatmikam Shaiva. The various internal objects, the mind, etc., are created. Therefore, there is an objective world. It's a very important point. There are two worlds created. The objective world is created, that is called Ishvara Srishti. Adhyatmikam Shaiva. The internal world is created, which is the world of vasanas. Why is it important? Who creates the internal world?
The Vishesh karma, or
Shesha karma, and that is only by. So there again, I'll bring out the point which I made elsewhere, that Srishti cannot be possible without the cooperation of the Jiva. Ishvara cannot create Srishti unless Jiva also says, okay, I'll give you a hand. Ishvara's creation is called Ishvara Srishti. But Jiva's creation, based on his likes and dislikes, that is called Jiva Srishti, your internal mindset. It is extremely important because it is the very tool, very instrument through which I look at the external world. And that is why what I see when I look at the world is often very different from what you see. What I consider an object of great pleasure, you may consider an object of great sorrow. So we all live in our own Jivasrishtis, own private worlds. The world which is, actually speaking, it is Ishvara's creation. But because I look at this world through my curtain of likes and dislikes, that world becomes an internal world for me, a Jiva Srishti. And that is why in Gita we said that the world by itself is neither a, a karanam for joy nor a karanam for sorrow, but because I look at it through my veil of raga and desha, I don't like something, it becomes a source of sorrow. I like something, it becomes a source of joy. And therefore he says, Yatha Vidya Tatha Smritihi. Whatever is your knowledge, in terms of looking at the thing through your likes and dislikes. Tasmritihi, that is the way that you judge people. Jiva is not, a dispassionate observer. Everything that he observes, he mentally classifies. Source of joy, source of sorrow, and therefore, yatha vidyaha, whatever he looks at, whatever he knows, tatha smritihi, he classifies. It is subjective judgment after that. Once you have classified, once you have put it in the box of a bucket of sorrow and a bucket of joy, then that same object is now capable of giving you joy and sorrow because it has been made subjective. So one is sukha hetuhu, cause for joy. One is dukkha hetuhu, cause for sorrow. And remember, not only that, once you experience one, what do you call, object as a karanam for sukham, as a cause of joy, you will try to repeat that experience. And once you experience an object as a cause of sorrow, you will try to avoid that experience. So that's what he says here. Yatha vidyaha tatha. He knows, he desires, he makes necessary efforts, then he remembers the result, and that also influences the way he functions. So karma produces karma phalam produces future birth and death. Samsara is established. The cycle never stops. Okay. Any questions? All very simple, nothing very complicated. It's just repetition of all that we have learned. Just different ways of presentation, that is all. All right. Now we look at Karika number 17. Please unmute yourself. We'll chant. Anishchitha yatha rajjuhu
अनिश्चिताय
Anishchitaya
andhakare vikalpita
Andhakare vikalpita
sarpadharadibhirbhavaihi
sarpadharadibhirbhavaihi
We'll do it again. Sarpadharadibhirbhavaihi
sarpadharadibhirbhavaihi
Tadvad atma vikalpitaha
Tadvat atma vikalpitaha.
The word of the second line is sarpa dhara adhibihi and bhavaihi. So I'll explain that. So he says yatha rajjuhu andhakare anishchitaha. You can understand? Yatha rajjuhu, just as the rope, andhakare anishchitaha is not clearly known in the andhakara, in the darkness. So yatha rajjuhu andhakarehe anishchitaha, just as the rope is not clearly understood in the darkness. Why? Because of the partial light. Right? Because of the partial light, what happens? I know there is something, inverted commas, something which is lying in front of me. But andhakare anishchitaha, I am not clearly seeing it. Therefore, what happens? Sarpa dhara adibihi, sarpa dhara adibihi bhavaihi is mistaken for vikalpita, mistaken for various things like sarpa, snake, dhara. Dhara is jal dhara, basically, a streak of water. So sarpa dhara adibihi. So mistaken for various things like snake, like a stream of water, etc. Vikalpita means mistaken for. Tadvad, in the same matter, in same manner, Atma Vikalpitaha. Atma is also mistaken. So an idea which is being conveyed here is that it's a very nice idea, which of course we all know, but I'm repeating for the sake of clarity. Total darkness, there is no problem, right? So total ignorance, there is no problem. Total light, there is no problem. So if you look at the same example of the snake, what will happen? If it is pitch dark, you will not know that there is something in front of you. And so there is no problem. But if it is absolute daytime, bright sunlight, you will see the rope for what it is. And therefore, there is no problem. When does the problem come? When there is partial knowledge and partial ignorance. Right? So, this partial knowledge, so anishchitaha, here we can take it as in Sanskrit we call it samanya jnanam. Samanya jnanam is a general idea that something is lying in front. Therefore, you know, because of the fact that it's not totally dark, you know that something is lying in front, something is curved also, it's bent also, and it looks about 4 or 5 feet long. But Vishesha Jnanam is not there. The fact that it is a rope is not there. So two things are combined. A general idea that something is lying in front, vaguely in the shape of, what can look like a snake. And because I cannot see very clearly that it is a rope, what do? I project. Why? Because this partial ignorance that I have, that ignorance has two powers. Avarna Shakti and Vikshep Shakti. So because of the Avarna Shakti, Avarna means concealing power. Because of the fact that there is inadequate light, the Avarna Shakti comes into operation and the true nature of the rope is completely covered. Right? But the existence of something is not covered. So I have a general idea that something is there. So it is, in Sanskrit we call it the Samanya Amshaha and the Vishesha Amshaha. So that rope has two aspects. Samanya Amshaha is existence itself. And therefore the fact that something is lying in front is known to me. Samanya Amshaha is known. The general existence of something that lies in front of me is known, but the Vishesha Amshaha, that it is a rope, is not known. And therefore the Avarna Shakti does not cover the Samanya Amshaha. The existence of something lying on the road is not covered, so I know that something lies on the road. But the Avarna Shakti covers the ropeness. The fact that it is a rope is covered by Avarna Shakti. So the Vishesha Amsha, the ropeness is covered, and once the Vishesha Amsha is covered, my second part of Ajnanam comes into operation. Vikshepa Shakti becomes active. That Vikshepa Shakti reaches into my memory and says, okay, that thing lying on the road is curved and it is 4 or 5 feet in long. What do I have in my memory that is conforms to that idea? And idea becomes a snake. So there is something lying on the ground is the actual knowledge. That becomes there is a snake on the ground because of the operation of Vikshepa Shakti. Right? The snake is not there. But the non-existent snake causes a burst of adrenaline in my body. My heart begins to thud. My breathing begins to become very fast. I get scared. What is the idea of this discussion? Because of the fact that I have got scared, that my heart is thudding, my breathing is become very, very fast. I cannot say that the snake is not existent at all. Fact remains that snake doesn't exist. But because of the effects of the non-existent snake, I cannot really say that the snake does not exist, because that snake is got a relative reality, a subjective reality in my mind, which is capable of frightening me. And who has given that snake its existence? The subjective existence has been given by me alone. At the same time, I cannot say that the snake is got absolute existence, because when I shine the torch, I find that the snake has disappeared. So, two statements. When light shines on the snake, there is no snake. Before the light shines, there is the fear caused by the snake. The snake is not totally non-existent because its products are there. So, snake is not totally existent because it vanishes in the light of the torch. And therefore, the snake is neither totally existent nor totally non-existent. It is sufficiently real to scare the wits out of me, but it is not sufficiently real to exist after I conduct an inquiry. And if such a thing is called mithya, and the world also comes under this category, it will continue to frighten me as long as I do not inquire into it. And therefore, we say that samsara cannot be driven away by any amount of rituals, any amount of karma. The whole samsara is like the snake only. And what is the torch for this samsara snake? It is the Veda only, Shastram only. So he says, Tadvat Atma Vikalpitaha. In the same manner, the Atma, because of Maya Shakti, I, the Atma, because of Maya Shakti, I mistake myself as Vishwa, Taijasa, and Prajna. And therefore, I have to recollect the earlier teaching, Anta Prajnam na Bhish Prajnam, na Ubhayat Prajnam. I am Turiam only. But I have lost that sight, that idea that I am Turiam, I have lost sight of because of self-ignorance, because of Atma Ajnanam only. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions? Nothing new. All ideas we have seen before in Bhagavad Gita also, in other Upanishads also. But it's being presented in another manner, that's all. Any questions?
Oh, Acharya, when you were
Yes,
talking
Vinitaji.
about the snake and rope and about the Ajnanam, just one thought came to my mind is ignorance is bliss. So the non-Vedantin doesn't know the snake on the rope. He has absolutely no idea. So till you come to Vedanta, only then Mithya comes into your life and you understand what is Mithya and what is Satyam.
Yeah, but the other way of looking at it is that if you don't understand what is mithya, you take everything as satyam.
Yes.
And everything that is
Yes.
satyam is troublesome to you. That is why it is
Yes.
important to learn, because once you know the world is mithya and you are satyam, then you know that the lower reality can never actually bother me.
Yes. Absolutely.
So you really can't say ignorance is bliss, because you're being troubled
No,
anyway,
no.
right?
Exactly. No, I was just talking of it from a non-Vedantic view, a person who doesn't understand
That
Satyam and
person is in
Mithya. Then
constant trouble, is it not?
Yeah, he's in trouble, but he thinks it's bliss for him because he's so involved in samsara and it's
No, 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 no.
uh,
Samsara troubles
uh,
people a lot. If samsara was only
it,
happiness, you wouldn't need to come to Vedanta at all. But samsara is troublesome.
yes,
See,
yes, of course.
never think that you come to Vedanta because of, fact that samsara is not troublesome. If you had a life which is full of what they call pleasures only, you would have very little motivation to come to
Yes,
Vedanta.
definitely, definitely. It is the inquiry which brings us to ask
Usually you will
the
find that
deeper questions.
you inquire ki why are these problems happening. Then only you come.
Mm, true, true, Acharya.
Okay, so with this we'll stop for today. Om
Om Purnamada
Purnamidam
Purnamidam
Purnat Purnamudachyate
Purnamudachyate
Purnasya
Purnamada
Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate
Vasishyate.
Om
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 Shanti
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 Shanti.
Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your
Om Namah
patience.
Shivaya.
Om Om.
Thank
Namah
you.
Shivaya.
Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya.